rainwater harvesting in South Asia. We are proud to say we have about 200 registered members. We have a website, active social media present on platform, and also a very active young champions collective as well. So today is the 19th webinar, and I'm very honored and pleased to welcome our presenter, Professor Asela Pathirana, uh, to introduce Professor Pathirana. He's associate professor at IHE Delft Institute of Water Education in the Netherlands. He specializes in water infrastructure and asset management and climate resilient water systems. His work spans applies research, policy engagement, and capacity development across Asia and beyond, with a strong focus on decentralized water solution and adaptive infrastructure. Currently, he is head of CAM Transform project in Sri Lanka, multi-partner initiative aimed at strengthening small-scale community-managed water supply schemes. He has published extensively on urban water resilience, infrastructure adaptation, and decision support tools. His academic and consulting engagement consistently bridge gaps between high-level infrastructure planning and on-the-ground realities, from rainwater harvesting in island nations to participatory water governance in rural communities. So at the moment, Professor Asela is in Sri Lanka, engaged in this project, I believe. So we have a well-placed person to address us today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Professor, to make your presentation. Thank you for joining us today.
All right.
So your topic.
Thank you very much for that introduction.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for that introduction, Tanuja. And I will take it over from here. And I would be sharing my screen. I think I have already. So
yeah, you have. You
I
are
hope
there.
you can see my slides now.
Yes.
So when I was introduced, I was invited to do this webinar. I thought long and hard what I'm going to share, and finally I ended up getting into a territory that is very familiar for me. Looking at two countries that I have actually worked in the sector of small-scale water supply systems. So my title today is Water Security Beyond the Urban, Sustainable Water Services for Communities Outside Municipal Supplies. So I guess that is your mission as well, most of you who are joining this webinar today, because looking at rainwater harvesting as one of the solutions, what you're doing indeed is, looking out for people who are outside the municipal water supply systems, even though rainwater harvesting equally applies for people with municipal water supplies. So what I'm going to do is to frame my talk between these two countries, the Maldives and Sri Lanka. So what I'm going to do is first go through the decentralized and I should not use the term rural, but decentralized water supply systems in each country. First, I will go through the Maldives and then come to Sri Lanka. And then I will try to make some comparison or what kind of lessons can we learn by looking at these two systems next to each other. Now, coming from South Asia, all of you know about the Maldives, but let me share some aspects of this country nevertheless. Look at the graph that I'm showing here. So here the x-axis is the land area and the y-axis is population density. So all these little dots that are scattered over the graph are the inhabited islands, that is, islands with people living on them, so that they need water supply. These islands of the Republic of Maldives, there are about 180, five of them, 84 of them, other than the capital territory of Greater Malay area. Why I'm showing this in this presentation is for us to get a glimpse of the 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 real demographic and land use situation in these islands. If you look at, you see some horizontal lines here because I added those lines to show you some of the most densely populated countries in the world with their population densities. So immediately what you see is that Singapore is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and there are some inhabited islands, a few inhabited islands in the Maldives that are rivaling Singapore in terms of population density. So what we are seeing in this country is a very unique combination of rural size with urban densities. So what do I mean by that? You know, in the Maldives, you have these very small islands that are like populated at the densities likes of Bahrain, Singapore, Bangladesh. So when it comes to infrastructure provision, when you look at the population sizes and so on, they have the disadvantage of being very similar to rural water supplies because the population numbers are small. At the same time, when you look at the land use management, availability of space and the likes, you have the worst situations that comes from urban population because population densities are also high. So this is the context in which Maldivian government is making attempts to provide piped water supply for these islands. So let me. Before I go into the details of the water supplies, this is these are the results of a survey we conducted across 45 islands in 2018-19 period. We published this work in 2020. With this extensive data set, what we noticed is that the groundwater, which by the way is one of the two water resources that they have. One is rainfall, the other is groundwater. I mean, Maldives does not have any other sort of hydrology to speak of. No rivers or natural canals, and very little water bodies that are usable. What we see is that 99% of the people are using groundwater, but many of them complain that there is smell and color in the groundwater. So groundwater system is highly polluted. So the Maldivian government, I thought I had an animation here because this slide is a little bit complicated, but let me go through it from left to right, how the system works. Solar photovoltaic cells on their roofs. So at least about 30-40% of the energy requirement can be, in theory, covered by renewable energy, namely the solar. The weaknesses, when you look at the weakness of system, the same kind of points come in. High-tech nature of the system is also a weakness because it needs a very high level of maintenance, upkeep, and the systems are, because they are advanced, they are technically involved. Here what happens is, imagine a situation like a population like a little village in each of these islands. You don't have any way of conveying water from one island to the other. So each island is on its own. So it's like a little village of sometimes 500 to 1,000 people typically. Sometimes it can be a little bit more. So providing an engineer to run this system is impossible, but even providing a well-trained technician is not that easy. So that is the Achilles heel of these systems at the moment, because the maintenance has become extremely difficult. And because of the high energy requirements and things like that, these systems have become very expensive to the customers. So I have talked to many customers who are using desalinated water in some islands, which has been some time since introduction of the system. So people have been using the water. What they say is they have to very carefully monitor the use of water. They cannot use it for flushing toilets and the like, because if you do so, you get a bill that is, simply unbearably high. So what people still do is they have dual or triple plumbing systems in their houses. So they use groundwater, which is polluted and smelly, but they use it for most of the tasks like flushing the toilets and even showering and cleaning cooking vessels, whatever little agriculture they do around the houses, these things. And then they use bottled water for drinking. That is also another very interesting aspect, because most of the people don't like the taste of the desalinated water, and they use desalinated water on and off. So the public acceptance of this system is somewhat spotty, to say the least. Opportunities. These systems are overbuilt, so they are very big. Many of the designers have used linear extrapolation of the population of the whole nation, whereas there is a lot of depopulation happening in the Maldives, from small islands, small out islands, to the capital, Male. So population is not growing according to those projections. So as a result, there is a lot of extra capacity. So they can indeed handle increased demands, like increased tourism, which is taking place in these islands increasingly more. Uh, and also sometimes you can use it for high value agriculture and things like that. Uh, Threats. When you closely examine these systems, keeping the capex aside, capital expenditure, which are largely from donor money or from loans, concessionary loans that the central government has underwritten. But keeping the capex aside, even for operation and maintenance, there is no business model. It's not very easy to capture the money that is needed for even for O&M. They are very expensive, and people don't use it. I explained it a while ago why it's happening. So these systems are in between the groundwater systems that people use for all the low-level water needs, and then bottled water that they use at a very high environmental cost um, of single-use plastics, but people still predominantly use bottled water for drinking. So the sustainability of these systems are very much being questioned at the moment. This is an anecdote that I recently experienced while traveling in the islands. I I met one of the operators of the water systems in the island, so we were chatting, and I asked him, "Are you using the rainwater harvesting system part?" Now you remember that when I described the system in the Maldives, you realize that there are two parts. One, 70% of the water is provided by the desalination branch, and 30% from the rainwater harvesting from public buildings. So my question was, are you really using the rainwater system pass? Because I knew by then that almost all systems that I personally have experienced, they have shut down the rainwater system part, rainwater harvesting system part. No, we don't. But this is the most important illustrating point for me as a asset management professional. No, we don't. But the water supply system is very old, you know. So the argument of the operator, which I guess is a reflection of the community as well, is that this system is very old. And I asked when it was built. Answer was 2017. So this is the challenge in most of these systems, because due to various reasons related to that, the first graph I showed you, that is this very odd and very difficult combination of urban population densities with rural population sizes. I mean, this kind of advanced systems simply do not work very well over the long haul. They work very well theoretically because the technology is proven, technology is world class. That is all right. But when you um, try to look at the sustainability of them, you see a very different story. I want to end the Maldivian case with some of my unpublished data. This is very controversial. Um, Recently we did a field survey in several islands. I don't want to name the islands for obvious reasons in this forum. Um, and we did sampling in the groundwater and uh, and uh, rainwater, uh, harvested rainwater, uh, as well as other water sources that consumer had. This was done by our colleagues from India who are partners with me in a project that we do in the Maldives. What is very worrying about this is that the piped water had very high percentage of contaminated samples. This is here we tested for E. coli. So the piped water in this particular case has more E. coli than the groundwater. So what is happening for the whole treatment process? So we looked at the system and we realized the treatment process is working all right. Somehow the chlorination did not work at that time because simply the chlorine supplies have not reached the island in time. So operators were running the system without chlorine at that particular moment. And then there is some contamination at the output side of the treatment plant. So maybe it's an unfortunate coincidence, but for me as an asset management person, this is not a random event. What happens is that, this is a result of a misfit of a design to the environment that design is working in. So this is the story of the Maldives. And very quickly, let us move into Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka also, I mean, when you look at the statistics or the headlines about the water supply in Sri Lanka, what you hear is that there is a premier water utility, water supply and drainage board, which is providing water to almost all the cities in the country and many rural areas. However, even today, there are more than 4,500 to 5,000 community-based organizations running water supplies independent of the water supply and drainage board. The main historical reason is that they are isolated places where it is difficult for the utility provider to lay pipes to. Um, the picture on the right is a system I visited about 3 or 4 weeks ago in the dry zone of Sri Lanka, in a place called Kumbukati. To my limited knowledge about this, we have at least about four different types of rural small-scale water supply systems in Sri Lanka. One is you get the water from a groundwater well. It's very different from the groundwater well we were talking in the Maldives, okay? Because these are freshwater wells, so you get pretty much no salinity. You simply chlorinate the water and distribute from a storage under gravity. So that is a typical system that you see in Sri Lanka. And there are other systems, this may be bit counterintuitive to what I mentioned earlier, because I said that these systems are there uh, in locations where there is no supply from the water supply and drainage board, the utility provider. However, over time, the utility provider has reached these places. So some of these systems has evolved. They have given up the wells or their sources, and they are purchasing water from the water supply and drainage board and distributing it themselves and billing the customers themselves. So there are systems like that at the moment. Then there are other systems where they actually have a source which is not fit for drinking without treatment. So they run treatment plants. Actually, there are many community-based organizations in Sri Lanka that run their uh, own water treatment plants with the aerators, slow sand filtration, surface sand filtration, and so on, and chlorination, and then distribute the water. Then there are few in very dry areas where reverse osmosis are being used. So this is an example from the hilly area in Sri Lanka, close to Kandy. You can see the pumps on the left. These are high lift pumps, because why this water supply system came into being was that water supply and drainage board could not provide water to that altitude, which was not simply cost effective. So the solution was they buy water from the water supply and drainage board, and they operate these pumps to provide water to the people who are living at very high altitude. On the right is this is the ferrocement storage tank they use to store water and distribute under gravity. The problem with this system mainly is that since you have to operate these high lift pumps, there is a huge electricity bill which has to be transferred to the customer. So customers are complaining about their their water bills. Customers are very happy. We did a social survey here a few weeks ago, and initial results show that customers are very happy about the service provided by the CBO, the 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 maintenance, the repairs they do very quickly, but they complain about the bill. So this system is at the process of being taken over by the utility, and consumers are looking forward to that because they think that their water bills will go down and the service quality will remain the same or better, which is which can be questionable, but we are going to let the process run its course, and we will do another survey down the line in about 1 or 2 years to see uh, what lessons we can learn from this process. This is another picture from the CBO in the dry zone that I told you about in Kumbukati. No, this is from system in Homagam. This is a typical system where now they buy water from the utility, but they distribute it. They insist that they want to run the business, and actually they provide water at a cheaper price than the main utility provider, because many volunteers are working in the system, so the salary costs are very low. So they had a treatment plant, but they are not using it now because now the utility has caught on, so that they are buying the bulk water from the utility and distributing it. This is a picture from the system in the dry zone I told you about, Kumbukate, and they have started with one well, and then they have moved into 3 wells, but still they realized that in the dry period they run out of water. So they have gotten the permission of the government and built this weir across the river, and they are taking water from that and run a treatment plant like this. You can see that it even has uh, solar roof, so they are providing energy to the grid as well, which offsets their running costs somewhat. This is a very well uh, operating community-based organization. And they are also running a reverse osmosis system there because people in that particular locality would like to drink reverse osmosis water. There are reasons for that. So they are selling reverse osmosis filtered water for a concessionary price compared to the private operators. So they even have this kind of distribution system where they will bring water to the households and sell it. So they have started doing value-added operations. So kind of flourishing system there. And they even operate a lab, which surprised me actually. And they are doing it quite seriously. And they are even testing for the outside people, like households can come here and get their water tested. So again, let's do a very quick summary of this. If you look at the strengths of these systems in Sri Lanka, they have very high community involvement and people have sense of pride. So that is a bit different from the systems in the Maldives, because Maldives systems are very much government run, and people have this feeling that we are not part of the water supply, but we just buy the water. The weaknesses are the low technical capacity of the people, and the capex has been coming from the grant, and that leads into the threat that is the funds for renewal and upgrade of systems are questionable. And you have this issue of founder syndrome as well. When you look at the leaders of this system, I mean, they are very much charismatic, leadership-oriented people, but when they leave this operation, what would happen remains a question. Opportunities, I mean, many of these systems have gone into various kind of diversification, and they have excellent potential for good asset management, say. So very quickly, conclusions. Maldives and Sri Lanka, I see very similar sizes, but very different technologies and different social dynamics and demographics. And I'm sure that if we go deep into comparison of these systems, we can learn great lessons from each other, and lessons that are useful for the rest of the world as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Asela Patirana. Yeah, for that very knowledgeable, useful presentation, both comparing Sri Lanka as well as Maldives, the water projects. We all know that Maldives have been using rainwater for a long time. And sad to say they are not using, to hear that they are not using it anymore. But I think hopefully looking at the data, they will soon get to use it as well. So we have some questions that has been posed earlier, so which I will shoot to you, and then we will then open up for others to also to put in some questions as well. So first I will go through a few other questions that have been posted previously. So one is, how can we better prepare water supply system in remote communities to withstand the increasing frequency and intensity of climate-related extreme events such as prolonged drought and floods? We have enough. Have we done enough research on these topics for Sri Lanka? What specific adaptation strategies have been proven most effective in maintaining the water security under climate change? So more related to issues. I'm sure both countries has the same problems with climate change. Any inputs from you how to
All
adapt for
right.
this?
All right, thank you. Tanuja, the question is clear. Climate adaptation strategies for the water supply systems, particularly the rural systems in Sri Lanka, and in extension for the Maldives. Now, we all know that climate change is impacting most of the aspects of the way we live our lives, right? Starting from increased frequency of floods, all the way down to heat waves and extreme cases of urban heat island in cities and so on. We have done research on these things and published, and not only me, but a lot of other scientists who are, spending their entire careers on this. But about when we look at the issues faced by the rural water supply systems. I will use the term rural here, even though Maldives is not exactly rural, these islands in population densities. When you look at them, I'm afraid I would say that climate adaptation requirement takes a little bit of a backseat compared to other more immediate challenges. The biggest challenge I see in the systems is one of sustainability of infrastructure. That can be the financial sustainability, that can be the challenge of asset management. You saw the situation in the Maldives where it's very difficult to have the trained people to run these systems. So why I say this is that these systems failed much earlier due to that problem as compared to the climate change driven issues like prolonged droughts and so on. Again, I want to make a very kind of nuanced point about this, because I'm not saying that climate change is not important. What I'm saying is that there are other problems also that you have to be very much aware of alongside climate change. About the research, yes and no, because climate change projections have come a long way. Especially drought projections can be done much easier compared to short-term rainfall intensities leading into floods. So as a driving force for these water supply systems, the water sources drying up and so on, we have pretty good data. So we can use them without doing too much research on the climate forcing. We can focus on adaptation strategies. So that is an advantage. But again, I would like to reiterate the fact that don't get focused only on climate change when you are dealing with these systems, because there are other very big problems that are plaguing this system's sustainability. Tanuja? All right. I'm going to open, because I'm going to open the question for. There was some. One moment. Okay. Let's go with Mr. Sivaram.
Yeah.
Sir, please ask your question.
Yeah, actually, I've already, uploaded in my chat box. However, I'll
Yeah.
ask, can you please say I have 3 or 4 questions. One by one, I'll ask. Then, you can give me the
Good.
answer.
Yeah.
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 Professor, my name is, Professor Sivaram. I am from NIRD, Hyderabad, India. Okay. See, can you throw some light on water charges in Maldives? That is number one. And if it is,
Yeah, I
how
think
much?
we'll go with number one, because I think we have to allow questions for many people. So I would appreciate if you ask one question, and if you
Yeah.
want to qualify that, that's fine. But let's go with one
Then,
question each. Okay?
another question, a small question. Have you studied health in Maldives in your study?
Health.
That's all. Yeah, health.
Yeah. All right.
That's all. That's
All right.
that's 2 questions only.
Yeah. So your first question was about water sources, right?
Water charges.
Water charges. Okay. Right. Yeah. So yes, we have. I don't remember the numbers from the top of my head, but what I notice is that in the Maldives there is this very big difference of income between the people living in the capital and the people living in the in the remote islands. Of course, I mean these are simplifications. I mean, as you all know that when you look at statistics hide the real nuances of the picture. But having said that, there is a difference. So and so most of the islanders, even though they are provided water at almost the same rate as the capital, people struggle to pay it, especially as I told earlier, that if they use it for all the domestic purposes, I mean, they run into trouble sometimes, because they say that, they actually, some of the people have shown me their bills. When you talk to them, they run to their house and bring the bills and show, actually, which is heartwarming. And they say that, look at this bill and look at my income. How can I afford this kind of bill? So that challenge is very much there. But then there is another layer to this question. Even at that tariff, the water is provided at a huge loss. I told you that even when it comes to operation and maintenance cost of the systems, it's practically impossible to cover that cost by the water tariff. So one day the government might have to increase the water price even more in order to make the system make the ends meet in the system. So that's the answer, hopefully, for your first question. Then your second question is about the health situation. We have done extensive surveys about people's perception about the health and water relationship. And a lot of people complain that, especially since I mentioned that people are using groundwater for most of the domestic non-potable purposes like showering and so on. But this groundwater is quite polluted. We have done the chemical testing and the biological testing, and we see that pollution there as well. So there is a lot of waterborne skin diseases and things like that people believe is related to the poor quality of the groundwater. Then when it comes to the drinking water systems, again, I use this term quite a lot. Theoretically, these systems are actually world class. They should provide safe drinking water, but we have already seen the evidence. I mean, again, we are not blaming anyone, because we see the harsh realities of these localities, because providing chemicals on time, having trained technicians, these kind of things are difficult. So as a result, the systems run very much suboptimally, to say the least. So there are health challenges coming even from the pipe water system that is provided to the household. On top of that, people buy bottled water. That does not hopefully we have not tested the bottled water yet, but hopefully does not have health concerns, but at least there is a huge environmental concern. So that is the situation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Dr.
You are back, Tanuja. Yes.
Gadesi, Mr. Gadesi has raised a hand. Would you like to ask a question from Professor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanuja. It was excellent comparison presented by Professor Esela between Sri Lanka and Maldives. Just one question, it worries me because the professor has mentioned that Maldives Island have been using rainwater harvesting, not in the by the communities, private households, but from the public sector buildings. So it means the rainwater harvesting practice is very much old, or at least has been experienced over there. So I am worried about that. He has mentioned the sustainability challenges, high utility bills, and the groundwater is also salty and smelly. Whereas on the other hand side, rainwater harvesting, we know that it is fresh and it's neat and clean. And what's the main reason that they are not able to scale it up? Rather, they have scaled it down, and they have adopted these high tech systems of treatment, and which is again the sustainability issues. Is there any policy over there for rainwater harvesting? Lack of policies and the policymakers or the practitioners issue? At what level you see that? What is the main issue that instead of stirring it up, um, I would like to know the rainwater rainfall pattern and the average rainfall. What is the it must be very good because these are the islands and they must receive good amount of rain during the whole of the years. So what's the main reason that instead of scaling it up and going for a simple solution, they are adopting these high-tech solutions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. A very interesting question. Yes. First, I would like to set the record straight that, I mean, in the example I showed you, I said that the water is being taken from public buildings, but there's a history in these islands. I mean, many of you know this really well, but I would like to explain it nevertheless so that all of our is on the same page. For the last 15 or 20 years or more, rainwater harvesting has been practiced in many households in the Maldives. Even historically, even further than that, they have been using rainwater as one of their main sources of good quality water. Actually, that is one of the reasons why they don't like the taste of this reverse osmosis water, because it feels a little bit hard for them compared to the very light taste of the rainwater. I have some video clips where people just say to the camera that I would like to drink rainwater, and that is one of the reasons why people go into bottled water as well. It's not only the health but the aesthetics of the water. So having said that, I mean, I'm not qualified to critique these systems completely, but I will tell you my observation. On the one hand, as it happens in many countries, consultants have taken over and designed systems that that works in somewhere else in the world, in the middle of the city and so on. They scaled them down and pushed it to this island. So that's one of the tragedies in this situation, because as you rightly pointed out, if I were given the opportunity, the privilege to design a system, I would start incrementally, without from these rainwater harvesting practices, because as you pointed out, there are the rainfall amount these islands reach up to about 2000 millimeters, and the dry season is very short. Even though there is a dry season, it's not that long, about 4 months. So if you have sufficient storage, you can overcome the dry season issue. And again, when due to donor requirements and so on, they have included this rainwater harvesting part in this very complicated system, making it even more complicated. So the first victim of the system is the rainwater harvesting system, because operators know that even if you don't run that system, you can run it with the reverse osmosis alone, and systems are overbuilt. And then nobody is responsible for the cost, because anyway you cannot recover the cost. So there is no ring fencing around it as a business. So that leads into this issue of, even the rainwater harvesting part that is built into these complex systems are not operating. So indeed, it is in my personal opinion, I could be wrong anyway, because I never say that I can, completely foresee what is the best system for these islands. But if I were given the opportunity, I would make the first attempt from this long tradition of rainwater harvesting and how to scale it up and make some much more manageable system that islanders can manage. You saw this when we compared the situation in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Again, I happen to be from Sri Lanka, but that was not the reason why I said that. At least the Sri Lankan system seems to be having a bit of a sense of ownership, because I think people are running it, right? Yeah. But somehow the Maldivian system did not go there, because these complex systems, people cannot run them anyway, right?
Yeah.
Island councils or so that is indeed a big challenge at the moment. So
Yeah,
I
from
doubt
your
the
discussion,
sustainability of systems.
yeah, it reveals that engaging communities is missing, and the other thing is that high tech feasibility is prepared by the consultants and the donors requirement, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we have a couple of more minutes to ask if you need some more questions to be raised. There's a question which was sent. What is the basic water demand management strategies and decision-making tools for developing countries and appropriate models used? That was
All
one.
right. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tanuja. Yeah, we are talking about water demand management. So I will narrow this question into the context that we are talking about, and our interest lies not the municipal water supplies, but the small scale water supplies. I will start with an anecdote, because last week when I was visiting this this hill country system I told you about, with with big pumps. When we were doing the social survey, we ran into this lady who has rainwater harvesting storage of I don't remember the numbers, but nearly reaching about 100,000 liters, which is enormous, right? So she is actually collecting almost every bit of water from her roof, and she's using that for almost all the users other than drinking and cooking. So she says that her water bill is very low compared to the others, and we saw that. So that is one of the interesting anecdotes I saw. Now, when you look at the Maldives, you can also already see the certain sense of demand management, because people are using groundwater and so on. But in the Maldives, the situation is actually the government provided supply is struggling because of lack of demand. So that's a sad reality there, because these systems are overbuilt. But coming back to the question about demand management, one of the tools that we often use is the pricing, because many of these small scale systems, they have this ladder pricing, where they give the first 10 cubic meters of water or so per month at a very very low price, and then the price increases steeply. But what I have seen over the years is that uh, price can be a good tool in your arsenal, but it has to come together with the other conditions, like awareness raising, working with people, providing them with reasonable tools and alternatives, right? So I see that sometimes one of the main roles of a utility in this day and age is also to help people to come up with things like rainwater harvesting, right? It doesn't have to be the same way that we do that in the picture in my background. I mean, this is one of the ways, uh, but you can have very different and very modern ways of doing this. So utilities have a responsibility. On the one hand, you can use this price trick, but at the same time, you have to provide customers with alternatives that are reasonable um, and easy to implement. If you do those two things, actually, the demand management becomes very very easy. Of course, I mean, there are other solutions like using using dual flush systems, which is being practiced in both these countries at the moment, and water saving devices and so on. But that providing alternatives in a easy way, and pricing, that combination can actually handle most of the demand management. Uh, but doing one of them will not work.
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with you. I think we have to look at it in a more holistic way, rather, find supplementary sources, even for urban areas where the pipe water is supplied. We should try to incorporate rainwater harvesting, so then more water can be given to other households which doesn't have pipe water, and also bring the cost of the bills as well.
And also the real cost of this, right? I mean, a country like Sri Lanka and the Maldives, which relies heavily on the foreign income, actually most of the chemicals and other consumables as well as parts related to water supply has to be imported. So actually every liter of water you save is actually a saving on foreign exchange as well.
That's right, yes. And I mean, compare it to a pipe water supply. Providing a pipe water supply to a household in Sri Lanka is over 1 million rupees. To providing a rainwater system is about 1/5 of that cost. So I think government should be encouraged to look at in that sense, and have promoted more. So okay, so few more minutes. We can shoot a couple of more questions before we let Professor go to do his research work. Any more? You can either post your question on your comments, or you can raise your hand and ask. Han, you are about to say something?
Well, I was thinking about it, but I always prefer that you guys sitting there in South Asia are having the first go at it. Anyway, yes, very interesting, Asala. I think having written both for Sri Lanka as well as for the Maldives, a 2050 drinking water supply and sanitation type of perspective a few years ago, not in 2017, but in 2019 and 20. We came to the same type of conclusions and advised accordingly. But of course, there is a brick wall somewhere. And the brick wall is not only, let's say, government institutions or the water, the National Water Drainage and Water and Drainage Board, but it is also the donors, as you pointed out, and the fact that the banks are there. The banks are providing funds, but they also have too much influence on how it is being used, and ultimately you end up in a dead end where the costs have gone up quite a bit, and the complexity of the systems, because they are still holding too much of a European or, let's say, Western type of approach, and it makes it very difficult for the ordinary customer, for the organization locally to manage. Now you see that in those places where people could manage, and your example from Kandy is quite instructive, even though, of course, the cost of high lift pumping was a bit of an issue, or is a bit of an issue, somehow the social management structure was capable of keeping it going. So there are ways by which we can use and mobilize local resources and capacity ever more now than in the past, in order to keep these systems going. But it's very clear that you have to somehow manage. Now, when you were talking, I was thinking of my experiences from Nepal. In those days, when I used to work there, 1980s, 90s, one of the issues that was always there for a woman was to see which sources she could use on the hillside. Was she going to go down where there was plenty of water, but the quality not so good? Was she going to go use another source, which was a bit further away, but the quality of the water was better? And then again, due to seasonality, they would have different sources which they would use during the year. Now, that fits very well with your last comment, in which you say, well, water utilities should give more attention to providing customers with the opportunity to use rainwater as well, because it offsets the overall distribution requirement. If you're currently a professor in the Netherlands. I am in the Netherlands. We are discussing and struggling with drinking water shortages. A ridiculous situation in a wet country like Holland, but still it happens. And so the thing here is that, you can, to a large extent, offset it by making sure that whatever falls on your plot, on your property, is collected and used for other purposes, maybe not in your kitchen, but certainly for the garden and for general cleaning purposes, and so offset 20, 30, maybe 40% of the water volume required, which means it frees up a lot of water for other people. And that is a situation that you can do at a household, you can do at a community, you can do in very many ways. And I think that's something that we have to consider much more, also because of the overall kind of, the combination of climate change, the population growth, or at least the density increasing in the cities and people requiring more water, taking water from 20, 30, 40 kilometers away from the town. I mean, the water can only be used once in that sense. So, whoever is able to save a little bit or use the water productively and clever is going to contribute to the sustainability of their own system, as well as from the sustainability in the vicinity of other systems. So I think wherever that is possible, rainwater is certainly a very positive concern. The funny thing is that after the tsunami, when all the tanks were floating towards Somalia from the Maldives, we invested as the international community, UNICEF and Crowd, WHO, an awful lot of money in restoring rainwater harvesting capacity in the Maldives. And I think if we would have gone that way, continued, we would have been okay. I did a study in 2012 or 11, something like that, for an organization that doesn't exist anymore, USAID. And I was specifically asked to design systems in 2 islands based on rainwater, which I did, and which I was able to show that it was possible to do it using not only public land, but also public roofs. Public land meaning also the soccer field and so on. And but of course, the wall that I was talking about, the brick wall, was that both on the US side as well as on the Maldives side, this was too complex, this was too complicated for them. Whereas I had the feeling in the discussions with the people that this was something that they would be able to manage because they already had so much experience. Anyway, I think it's a very interesting and important debate, even though you did not want to address the climate change issue. And I fully agree with you that, the general competence or quality of design and the competence of the operation is more important at this moment than climate change. But in the end, we will still face that one too. I think there is, a lot of work that we can do and things that we can somehow manage together if we are together. And that's also a challenge. People are losing the skills. The Economist, a newspaper from the UK, questioned itself about 2 weeks ago and said, are the young people still able to do ordinary things? Can they sew? Can they do carpentry work? Can they do the ordinary things that they... No, the only thing they can do is switch on a telephone. This is the problem. This is the problem. Yeah?
Yes.
So I think we can still bank on the capacity of people, but we have to encourage them further and make sure that also the older people, the elderly, will still be able to give them advice and point out how they used to do it and why it was working at that time and why maybe certain decisions were taken. There's a lot of scope. I'm not at all, in that sense, also not for Sri Lanka. I'm not at all, let's say, depri, as we say in Dutch, depressed. I think there's a lot possible, but there is need to share more between the government, between the power of the utility and the local initiative, such as to make sure that, you know, local initiative has a better chance of getting the service right, as you saw in Kandy, with of course some financial issues, I know, but still. Thank you very much, Astela. Very interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
With that-
I'll just make one comment because I know that we don't have time, but you know,
That's okay.
I'm struggling to write a paper on something called project mentality. That really dives into the issue you mentioned earlier about these donor organizations and so on. Sometimes, you know, pushing things into the throats of the communities, and it doesn't work. But anyway, I can see Tanuja making noises because I think we have run over the.
No, I don't
over
want to
time.
disturb
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, then with that, we'll end this webinar, and we'll thank Professor Asela Pathirana for sharing his valuable experience, both from Maldives and Sri Lanka as well as elsewhere, and spending this time with us, with SARNET members. I hope we will see you in this platform in the future also, with networking with us. As you can see, we are all like-minded people who promote these ideas. So thank you again for joining us today and spending your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for all the participants also
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
and contributing. And thank you, and we'll see you at the next webinar on it will be the 20th. So keep you posted on that, and thank you. And I go on again to all of you. Bye-bye.
Go on. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.